Welcome everybody to Beyond the Steps. We are so excited to have you here today for our show. It's Friday at 3:30, and every Friday at 3:30 we come together to discuss important topics that impact performance artists all over the place, answer one question from a wide range of issues affecting performance athletes, from racism, gender equity, sex abuse prevention, nutrition, psychology, science, and more. I'm Melissa McDaniel Grisham. I'm the founder of Turning Point Dance Creations, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Bree Zabrowski, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear. Today, we are talking about diversity and inclusivity in the professional dance space, and we're excited to welcome Suzanne Purcell and Indira Cunningham from Confluence Ballet Company to join us for this conversation. Bree, let's introduce Suzanne and Indira.
Yes, happy Friday, everybody. Suzanne is the CEO of Rise Media and the founder and lead creator on Point to Rise podcast. She became affiliated with Confluence Ballet in February 2022 through an interview with two of their company artists. And after seeing that mutual interest and compatibility with the organization's missions, joined the board soon after that. Suzanne is a former dancer with a Bachelor of Arts focused in ballet from I'm going to butcher this. Suzanne, help me out. What is it? Stalice?
It's a state ballet school in Berlin. It was,
Nice.
there you go.
In Germany. Suzanne uses her platform and her role within Confluence to expand the scope and reach of ballet and works make the art form an equitable and sustainable career within Confluence and beyond. She spent over 25 years in the performing arts, experiencing firsthand how the industry functions. So we're really interested in her perspectives today. Indira is a performing and visual artist and native to Atlanta, Georgia. She began training in Atlanta at the Atlanta Festival Ballet. As she grew up, Indira fell in love with ballet and began to train professionally with Bal Ethnic Academy of Dance, followed by an apprenticeship with them. Indira continued her education at the University of Oklahoma in fall 2017 as a National Award Scholar and member of the Honors College while dancing as a trainee, and later studio company member of the Oklahoma City Ballet. She's continued her studies and is now an artist with the Confluence Ballet Company for its inaugural season. So we're excited to have you both. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Suzanne, can you tell us a little bit about Confluence and its mission? What makes Confluence different and unique from the other performing arts companies that are out there?
Oh, Bree, that is such a great question. And it's a loaded question, too, because there's so much to say around that. Well, what makes it different? I can tell you when I go back a little bit and maybe analyze what we're seeing right now in the performing arts world, right?
Yeah.
And that really got blown up through COVID, where we really felt that what had been working isn't working anymore. In terms of how we're distributing the art, how we're treating the artists. And this is not just ballet, that is all over any performing arts platform. Where are we at in equity and equality? How were we including our artists in the actual creation end? And I would say that is the difference, that we've seen this. We came into this creation of a newer ballet company with the knowing that there's no point of doing it as it had been, and it's time for something new. And what could that look like? So I'm just going to read you the mission of Confluence, actually, and then we can talk about that in depth if you like.
I love that. Thank you.
It is to provide the community with ballet performances and education of the highest caliber while nurturing artists in an inclusive, diverse environment of both tradition and innovation. I'm going to take out the tradition and innovation because I think that is what holds the entire industry back. The cling on to tradition that we can't change, and if we change, we're traitors. And that is exactly what we're trying. What we're not trying, what we're committed to breakthrough.
Suzanne, it's like you were meant for the show, because it's amazing to hear this being said, and I love that you are all coming at this from a different perspective and from such a fresh perspective, such a needed perspective. You're exactly right. We talk all the time about how tradition there is a lot of beauty in tradition, and there's a lot of great things about it. But one of the hardest things for dance is it has really held dance back from evolving in so many ways, from the footwear we wear to, the way that we're looking at dancers and treating them, not as individuals, and, the stereotypical body types and all the things that are problematic, that we all kind of recognize as problematic, but there's not a lot being done to fix it and to address it. So we certainly appreciate you taking that leap and leading the charge, because it needs to happen. And we're so grateful to have you here to lead this conversation with us today. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's like she's been listening to every episode
Yeah.
that we've ever recorded, and she was like, I'm going to summarize it here for you. So thank you so much, Suzanne. I have a question for Indira. Based on your bio, you've spent some time with a few companies, probably some that are more steeped in tradition than what Confluence is. What's the biggest difference that you've noticed in the culture of Confluence since coming to the company?
Well, it's really that there isn't one way to be at Confluence, and that in other companies that value that tradition so heavily, one thing they value is uniformity. And so if you're in a corps de ballet, you're not supposed to really stick out. But that makes you, if you don't look like that, for whatever reason, have to do a lot, both internally and externally, if you want to make it to fit. And that's just like really, that goes to a bad place. It gets very unhealthy, because you're denying like the person that you were actually meant to be when you show up in that space. And so at Confluence, you can just kind of do that, which is really great, because that's a lot of extra stuff to think about when you could just be focused on your art,
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think, Indira, we all kind of, I think, understand that there's a certain way of doing things in the professional dance world. There's politics and all kinds of processes that go on behind the scenes. Is that different for you? Do you get to bypass all of that with Confluence and kind of it's more of an authentic perspective and very welcoming for dancers? It sounds like it. So interested in your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that that is what we're about at Confluence, because we not only, do people show up as they are in the space and they have the opportunity to do the work just like anybody else. It's not that you're relegated to the sides or you're always the understudy. We also have the aspect of our company that it is dancer led in part. So we are very much collaborating with our artistic director and our board in doing what we're trying to do here, and everyone gives input, and so we really are getting the best ideas out of our group. Whereas, when you don't include the dancers, sometimes they have a great idea about how something can be done better, but you would never know.
Right.
Sure. Thank you,
Suzanne. There's a phrase in your bio that I just love. You kind of pointed it out. It says bridge between tradition and evolution, or innovation. We talk so much on the show about that, about the harmful practices that have become ingrained in dance culture from generation to generation. And every educator or choreographer or company artistic director who said, well, that's just always the way that we've done it. That's just how we've always done it. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of building that bridge, or even making a bridge? Because some people don't believe that you should go toward evolution, and some people don't believe you should even look back to tradition. There's people kind of on both sides, and there's no bridge in between. What is the importance of making sure that there's a bridge there?
Great question. So let me start with, I think it starts with awareness, meaning that is actually what we're producing right now in the arts still working? Does it still apply? Does it still speak? Does it still serve a mission, a vision? Does it still serve the people? Because that, why are we actually doing that? Why are they here? Isn't it to point out cultural not misfits, but things that are not working, or things that we are afraid to talk about, but yet we can express it through music or dancing or pictures or comedy for that matter. So building that bridge is important to me, and I think it should be important to the industry too, because I believe that if we keep going the same way, that in 30, maybe even in 20 years, we will not have an audience to serve anymore.
Wow.
Because nobody can relate. If you look how fast technology is evolving, if you look at how customer and consumer behavior has changed, particularly after the pandemic, we're not relatable if we keep doing what we're doing, if we keep sticking onto tradition. So I'm not saying to ditch the tradition, because that's one mission of the arts, to keep alive traditions, right? But we need to look at it from a, hey, great, it worked back in the 80s and the 70s in 1920. But we're in 2023. Now, how can we mold it and form it and apply it into where we are at as a society altogether? And that is the bridge that I believe needs to be built. And by building that bridge, I also strongly believe that we actually will be cutting through the terminally ill struggle for artists, the starving artists. We're hanging on to that belief. It always has been done like this, but that doesn't mean it always has been working. And that's the next evolution. This is where people need to evolve too, in their thinking and in their beliefs.
So I think that's the theme for 2023 is just, we have to really look at what is not serving us anymore, what is not healthy for us anymore, and let it go and build new traditions, right? It doesn't mean letting go of all of them, but building new. So I love that you just said that. So what do you say to the people who are just hardcore taking the stance, evolving dance in this way? It's not necessary. That's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the art. We're dishonoring the history of dance. What do you say to somebody who is very rigid in their belief that status quo is the way to go?
How open can I be? Because
very.
Okay. Well,
very.
I would have a completely different conversation. I would ask them, what are they fearful of letting go? Why is it so important? Why would it be disrespectful to an art form? Is it disrespectful to an art form, or is it disrespectful to them? Because when we're putting out these kind of statements, if we're hanging on and clinging on to something so radically, it comes from a place of deep, deep fear of change.
Yeah. So do you think the problem, the overarching problem with the things that we need to let go is the leadership? Do you feel like the leadership is a big, the decision makers, the people who are setting the code? Do you think it's the dancers? Do you think it's both? Where is the biggest problem that needs to be addressed in your opinion?
Again, can I be frank?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think we need to stop promoting principal dancers into leadership positions that make decision over dancers, that are still passing on the hurt from one generation to another, because that's where we're hearing, oh, I've been through this, it worked for me, it will work for you.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. I also believe that it is imperative that the need to be perfect is going to be taken out. Because what that does is really not allow people to learn and to evolve anymore, right? And the problem that we're having is that dancers, particularly artists, have stopped being curious. Remember how Indira said how we, we're working together, we're having input from every possible side. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Every company in businesses, in really successful businesses that are leading any kind of industry, the people in the middle, the people that are in the sauce, in the mud every day, are the ones that are the most creative and that are pushing companies forwards.
Yeah.
And we're not using that power within, because let's be frank, if we're having the dancers start speaking up and running a company, how uncomfortable is that? How uncomfortable is it for the leadership? Because they no longer can tell you to lose 20 pounds if you want to have that solo role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of a sudden you have people that talk back and respect
Yeah.
themselves enough
Yeah.
to drop
And
the
it,
hand. Yeah.
when we're talking about talk back, is like, can we also have conversations? Dancers are not used to or not encouraged to talk, have a voice. It's all about shut up and dance. I mean, we've heard it over and over and over again. I have certainly. I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're still hearing it, right? So not having a voice is another problem, or something that can be overwritten, and I think would just have an organization blossom so much and really move them forward.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I love your candor with all of that. Thank you so much for sharing. For those out
I,
there, just go ahead. No, say
sorry,
more.
I have another.
Yeah.
The boards in these arts organizations, like what is their, what's their why? Why are they actually sitting on the board? You know, is it to give money and to have a social status, or are they there because they love the arts, but they're just supporting the leadership without questioning it? I think the mechanism and the real role of a board is to challenge and to push forward. That's in any kind of business, that's what the board is there for.
Mm-hmm.
But in the arts, for example, it's not. Why? There's no reason.
There
It's
just may
because,
be a complete lack of understanding of how the process actually works. Because I can tell you, dancers are very unique creatures, right? We're a very unique breed of person. And it's very hard. I know this from the Impala side of things. It's very hard for the regular, average person, the non-dancer, to understand the dancer's world, the dancer's language. And oftentimes those are the people you have sitting on the board, right? So I totally agree with you. I could see how that would get muddy very quickly.
yeah, and then we're not taking the right people on the board either, because we're only looking for, the deep pockets. I'm sure
Right.
you all
Don't.
heard
Yeah.
that expression, versus having people that can lead change in the organization. And if you have that in a profitable business, you are doomed. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, you're not running a profit. And I think we need to stop treating arts organization as a hobby, and really start implementing business models, because business and technology are not the enemy
No.
of the arts. They're complementary, right?
Yeah.
So I
Wow, Suzanne, you just said a whole lot. You just said a whole lot, and I want people to go back and play that back, because that pretty much sums up everything that needs to change right there in 2-3 minutes. For those just joining, I'm Bree Zabrowski, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my friend and co-host Melissa McDaniel McDaniel Grisham. I always do that, of Turning Point Dance Creations. And this is Beyond the Steps. This is a show where we talk about all things from racism, gender inequity, sex abuse and prevention, psychology, nutrition, and of course, dance medicine and science. How are those things impacting the dance community? We have guest experts that join us every week to facilitate these conversations. And today we're talking to Suzanne and Indira of Confluence Ballet Company, and we're talking about the importance of prioritizing diversity and inclusivity in the professional dance space. They're just doing it different over at Confluence, so we encourage you to check them out and play back this episode, because there's a lot of good nuggets already. Suzanne, it feels like, well, obviously your company takes a very artist-centric approach to dance, and we recently did a show with Leslie Scott Zanovich from NEMA. NEMA.org. A shout out to our friends over there doing great work to keep dancers happy, healthy, safe, and dance. But what does taking an artist-centric approach mean when we're talking about building and running a performing company? Because obviously you can't have dancers running amok in any organization. You have to have a leadership structure. You have to have Somebody has to be the voice, right? The decision maker. If you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it becomes very challenging. So how do you navigate that?
Oh, I think we're learning that.
Yeah.
It is a process because, we're figuring it out. And let me, if I may ask you a question, when you say artist-centered, what does that mean to you? And maybe then I can answer that question a
I
little
don't know, Melissa, maybe it's different for you, but for me, that you're valuing the artist as a person, you're valuing the ideas and thoughts that they have, you're valuing that maybe the individual talents and the uniqueness of each person, instead of looking at them as a number or looking at them as one whole piece. For me, that's what it means. But I don't know, Melissa, maybe.
Yeah, I think that you let the wellness of the artist, the mental
Yeah.
health of the artist, the physical health of the artist is what drives the organization versus
Yeah.
the organization and what you want, the dollars, the vision of one person driving the mental health, the physical health of the artist. That's different. You have to let you're only as good as your artist is. You're only as healthy as your artist is. And I think that we have totally flipped this upside down. And that's at so many levels, at the competitive dance level, at the performing level, at the university level. We have flipped it upside down where you're going to make us better versus we are only good as you are, as healthy as you are. And dancers are being, in particular, are being used as tools to generate revenue, popularity, notoriety, for people who don't even dance.
Right. So yeah, Suzanne, so that's what we want to know, right? So from the business side, because Indira, I'm going to ask you the same question from the artist perspective in a second, but from the business side of things, the administrative side of things, from your seat on the board, how do you build and run a performing company with that approach? Like, what is the goal for you all?
Let me tell you first where we're at currently.
Sure.
Okay. Dancers are making costumes. Dancers are running social media. Dancers are putting together curriculum for a trainee program. Dancers are having access to the financials and making financial decisions. And Indira, please jump in if I at any point don't say something that's correct. So these are all aspects on how the company works as a whole. Now, we came to this because we had no other choice in the beginning, but it turned out to be, oh my goodness, we actually have something here. Now, what is going to be the next step in terms of evolution, and how can we, really ensure that the artists have time to be an artist? On the other side, do also know, okay, what does it mean to write a grant? Is there time for it? Are they going to have the span? I mean, Indira, you're on the grant writing team. You guys did fantastic.
A lot of work. Yeah.
A lot of work, and that's continuously, right? But what I personally believe is that involving everybody in the creation of a company or a project can create something so much bigger and better than if you just take it from one person's vision. I mean, yes,
Well, I can imagine, yeah, when you have everybody bought in like that and everybody is invested and everybody feels it really almost bolsters a sense of pride in the project and in the thing, right? Because you've got everybody that's had a hand in it and they want to see it succeed and come to fruition. Whereas when it's about one person, you can lose sight of that. So now, Indira, switching gears, talk about what that artist-centric approach feels like as the artist for you. What is that like for you?
Going off of what you just said, I do feel like it really does bolster a sense of pride, at least for me personally, just the work that I've been able to do and the things that I've been able to learn working with Confluence outside of my artistry has really made me better as a person, but it's also really connected me with the organization because I'm like, wow, look at all the great work that we're doing. And, honestly, most of the people that are in these positions now, they had to grow into them because of how we started.
Yeah.
And this kind of just being something we fell into. But that also makes me really proud of all of us because we're getting the hang of it and things are like starting to work now. And I'm like, okay, we just learned an entirely new skill set
Mm-hmm.
as an organization. So that's just really cool. Also, I would say for my own health and wellness, I know that I can be very open and honest about what's going on and not have to be afraid that that's going to impact me negatively in a
That's a
rehearsal
big one.
setting,
That's a big
in
one.
casting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that the other dancers feel this way as well because we don't just make people come in when they're sick. Like that is a detriment to everyone else in the company. Like please, stay home, take a day, like take care of yourself. Very understanding of just things that are going on because we're all people and that helps you to be a better artist when you're not living in fear that, oh my goodness, like if something happens, I might lose
Absolutely.
my part, I
Yeah.
might make them mad, things like that.
I can't tell you how many people we've talked to on this show that say that that's a huge problem. It's a huge motivating factor for people dancing on injuries, when they shouldn't be dancing, people coming in when they're sick because they're afraid that they're going to lose their spot, and why they don't say anything when they see behavior going on that's harmful, whether it be sexual abuse, verbal abuse, abuse of power. People don't feel comfortable saying things. Dancers don't because there's that fear I'm going to lose my job. And for dancers, that's everything, right? But beyond that, I want to walk back to what you said about, you're proud that you're learning all these new skills, and how wonderful is it? Because at the end of the day, like, let's be real, dancers are their own business. You're your own business. You may have this job and that job and whatever, but it is you're the business, and you have to learn to promote yourself and do all these things. So the fact that you're building those skills while contributing to a greater picture with Confluence, it's huge. I mean, what a valuable asset you all are providing over there, Suzanne. So that's fantastic.
Can I add something, Brie? I'm so sorry, but I just love, love, love how you said, and I use this phrase over and over again, dancers, artists altogether are their own business,
Yeah.
but yet it's not being taught. You're being
No.
taught that one craft, well, that one way of expressing through your body, but everything else, it's all about physical fitness. It's not about mental fitness. It's not about business fitness. It's not about spiritual fitness. It's not about any kind of other fitness that is being taught. And I believe if you even look at the people that we see from the outside as successful, they're really well rounded. And I don't mean that they sing, dance, and walk tightrope.
Right.
They know many things in other areas. They're curious. They want to learn. And that is what needs to come back into the arts, the willingness and the openness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're looking at artist centered, I wanted to put that in there because the learning and the curiosity is what I personally would like to bring back into, but particularly young 20-year-olds. It is so important that you keep on learning and that you don't stand still, you know. So there, I said my piece.
I want to make a quick connection to something you said earlier about the harm of dancers moving directly into leadership positions and then causing the same harm that was caused to them to the dancers who are they are now in charge of or making decisions for. I think that the approach that you are taking, giving these artists a full picture of what running a company is like, a full picture of the financial piece, a full picture of the promotion piece, of the funding piece, will make dancers even more prepared and prepared to inflict less trauma if they do move into a
Yes.
leadership position in a company. It's almost
Yeah.
like building what they call, in sports, a backbench. It's almost like I'm training and having giving dancers a full comprehensive understanding of how a company works and how it works better when you actually serve your dancers. And so if those dancers do move into leadership positions in companies later, you're creating a better leader overall because they have that comprehensive overview. So I think that the way that you have structured your company has far-reaching implications, for years and years and years to come. And I would hope that more companies would take the lead. If you're out there listening, more companies would take the lead, and take the reins and do the same type of thing. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Beyond the Steps. I am Melissa McDaniel Grisham with Turning Point Dance Creations with my co-host Bree Zabrowski from Apollo Performance. And we are here with Suzanne and Indira from Confluence Dance Company talking about inclusivity and diversity in the company. And we just had this great discussion about artist-centered approach to dance. If you did not catch the beginning of this episode, these are totally available at Apollo Performance and at TP Dance Creations on YouTube. Go back, watch it from the beginning, share, subscribe to get even more information. And if you have any comments, we would love to have them. Drop them now in the comment section, and we would love to hear your thoughts. Indira, as a person of color in a professional ballet world, I'm sure there are some common challenges that you have faced. Would you share just, maybe two or three of the most prolific challenges that you and your peers face as people of color in the ballet space?
I would say for me, touching back on something that I said earlier with how we can show up in Confluence as we are, I think that the most harmful aspect of the past cultures that I've been a part of previous to dancing with Confluence was that I just always felt other. And
Mm,
that just really, really, really eats away at you over time because it's like you're trying all these different things to feel like you fit. And in reality, you shouldn't have to fit, you
mm-hmm,
should just be. And
mm-hmm,
so trying to become something that you're not is just really was that was probably one of the worst aspects of it because it's just there is an ideal that those people have, and if you're not that, you're going to spend all your time while you're there trying to be that so you can do what you want to do, which is dance.
mm-hmm,
um, I would say overall trying to break the stereotypical view of whatever your culture is. So in the Nutcracker Ballet, for example, we have a lot of traditionally cultural, like, taboo things as characters, but, it's become very clear as a society in other forms of media that we've moved on from doing things like that that are obviously very offensive.
mm-hmm,
But in ballet, you still see them so much, and it's just like, for anyone who is a part of those cultures that is looking at the ballet, that is in the ballet, you feel like very, I don't know, tokenized, but in the worst way.
mm-hmm,
And seeing stuff like that, even if it doesn't affect you personally, like it just makes you so aware of how people disregard it and they disregard other forms of racism that are occurring around them
mm-hmm.
every day because it's like we've become desensitized to it almost. It's just so prevalent. So that as a person of color, I would say is probably the worst aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. So have you felt empowered, or even have you had moments in previous spaces where you saw some type of offensive characterization of that, or you felt like I should really say something, but you haven't felt safe enough to do so?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Um, just in the positions that I had, when you're really just a dime a dozen and I'm already other, there's no way that I would feel safe enough to say, "Hey, like, this is kind of not okay. Could we possibly consider," like, that's ooh. That's such a great question because it's just so far from what those cultures that they're creating
Mm-hmm.
would allow. At
Mm-hmm.
Confluence, I know that if I think something should be done, at least I could go tell someone
Mm-hmm.
and they would consider it. It might not work out that way, but like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to get in trouble for saying that.
Right.
No way that you could do that in so many other companies.
Wow.
It would just you could just be fired for something like that because
Right.
they don't really need you. They
Right.
have so many people lined up at the door trying to get your spot, you know.
Right. As a dance educator, one of the things that I always say is, I'm not creating great dancers, only great dancers. I'm creating great humans. And just the fact that once you get to a professional level, it's almost the idea of perpetuating not great humans or ones that look over or pass over offense or trauma. It's like you raise these kids, you train these kids to be great humans and be kind and teamwork and kind to each other. And then once they move into professional world, it's like, okay, forget all of that. You should be complicit in the things that we're doing that harm others. It's such a horrible juxtaposition and just so contradictory that it's very disturbing. And I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can move in a different way, which kind of leads me to my next question for Suzanne. Many times when people think of diversity and inclusivity, they automatically think of racial diversity. That's what they think. They think black and white. And I know you might have. I don't know if it's the same. You have a base in Europe. It might be different here in American culture. I'm not sure. But I know Confluence prioritizes diversity in all aspects, even outside of race. So, one of some of the ways that the company is modeling inclusivity and diversity that might be, not based on race.
Great question. I would say, and let me back up with that. Growing up in Germany and particularly in East Germany,
Mm-hmm.
that never was something that I didn't even know racial inequality or inequality altogether, even between genders, because that was one of the great parts, that didn't exist. We were all equal. Did it
Mm-hmm.
work? No, it didn't. However, because we're as humans are not, we keep comparing and our ego comes out, we want more and more and more and more. But when I came here to North America, I was flabbergasted with how people looked at different races. Like I didn't even have the courage to speak up because it felt like no matter what I would say to either side, I would offend. I don't know what it's like to be a Black person. No, I don't. But I grew up in East Germany. Do you know how many times I've been labeled outside of Germany as being a German and being, part of the Nazi system that killed millions of people? That's how I was labeled. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, it's in everything that we do. We like to judge as human beings every other single person in what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're looking like, what their thoughts are, what kind of decisions they're making. And when we open ourselves up to, hey, that's the way they're choosing it, it's not my job to label it whether it's right or wrong. I can make a decision whether or not I want to sample that, if I want to follow that or not. So when we're talking about diversity and inclusion within Confluence, it's not about what people look like, or it's about how we make decisions. It's about where our thinking is, where our beliefs are. Like, are we including everybody in the decision-making process? Are we including other organizations? Are we
Mm-hmm.
helping other organizations that are perhaps also nonprofits? Are we
Mm-hmm.
collaborating, which is another challenge I feel the whole nonprofit arts world has, the fear of not having enough money keeps them
Yeah.
from collaborating, which would create so much more art and serve other people with that. So collaboration and seeking out collaboration is, I would say, one of the biggest parts for me personally in
Mm-hmm.
how we are showing diversity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne, so this is kind of off topic, but I'm curious. You guys are you're in a unique position because your mission is something entirely separate from what the rest of the industry is doing, and it is innovative and it is thoughtful and it is so much needed. But you're also a startup, right? You're also in very early stages as a company, and when you're in, I can attest to this, but when you're in startup mode, it's all hands on deck, and you have everybody jump in and grab an oar and row the boat. As Confluence gets bigger, and that's why you have company members like Indira, you have all these people contributing and learning these wonderful skills as you continue to grow, because inevitably you will, because this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to maintain that same culture as you get bigger? Because I think that's what happens too, is as organizations grow and they get more money and there's more voices involved, like inevitably it starts to shift towards that thing we don't want. How are you committed to making sure you maintain the integrity of the program as it stands now?
You said something very interesting that creates the things that we don't want. I don't think it has to do with size. I think it has to do with leadership, not
Yeah.
having the right people in the right seat. Simon Sinek says that leadership is a choice, not a rank. And when we're putting the right people into the right seats and make every decision, and I'm saying every single decision, through the lens of why are we here and why are we doing that? What is our why? If we're looking at Apple, everything that they're doing, everything that they're talking about is about their why. It's not the product. It's nothing like that. It's about why they're here. And I strongly believe, even if we don't have the roadmap, like particularly laid out, knowing what the why is and having it so ingrained in every single person that is within the organization, that is how you ensure that never dies, no matter the size.
You know what? And you're absolutely right. Knowing your why is the answer. That is 100%, because I can tell you, like, the journey as a startup is like this, and growing a business is like this. And if you constantly remember and focus on that North Star, right? Like, this is why we're doing this, and you believe in it so passionately, you will move mountains with that. So we wish you guys the utmost success. I mean, I'm excited hearing all of this. I can't imagine how excited you are to be part of it. And I can't wait to see the impact you make on this dance world of ours, because it's going to be a big one.
Yeah. Hopefully others will.
Could I just add something? And I know we're at the 45-minute mark, but the leadership is a choice, right?
Yeah.
Evolution is a choice. I think it is really, and I want this to hear so clearly for everybody out there that is, running organizations, that is even going into organizations, that you always have a choice. You get to make that choice every day. You're getting up, whether or not you're following what has been done, or you start being curious and creative about what else can be done. We're not getting into the studio because we're, in love with ourselves. No, we want to be on stage as dancers because we want to bring something to the world. We want to express. And why are we not taking that as the biggest gift? Why are we keep fighting against the creative power?
Yeah.
And that is what needs to change. You're not a leader because you're making 7 figures. I hope so. But if that's the case, then you're not in the right spot.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I think it's time for homework.
Let's do it.
Yes. Every week we ask for homework. If you are just joining this episode, if you're just joining us for this episode, you have missed an amazing one. But the good news is that you can go back. It's on YouTube at Apollo Performance and at TP Dance Creations. Watch it from the beginning. Like, share, and comment. We would love to know your thoughts. And make sure you share it with someone. If you want to get it in your inbox, you can get this episode in your inbox and watch it from there. No sweat, no stress. and just follow that link that Bree just popped up there on the screen. So every week, Suzanne and Indira, we like to give our viewers homework, one small thing that they can do between now and our next show, which is next Friday, to make progress in this area, to promote more diverse and inclusive professional dance spaces. And you can talk about this from the dancer perspective, from the business perspective, but we would love to hear from each of you one action that you want to challenge our listeners and viewers to take between now and next week to make progress. I will start with Indira.
I would say start to challenge your thoughts and perceptions of other people in the art space.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have these thoughts and you don't even really challenge where it comes from. You don't even ask, is this really how I feel? It's just stuff that you've heard, stuff that your brain has taken in. And maybe you don't actually feel that way, or if you do feel that way, you can unpack, why do I feel that way? Because that's not really in line with the values that I'm trying to say that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So always just challenge your thinking.
Great. What about you, Suzanne?
Hmm. I would challenge everybody to be very clear around their values and mission in life. Meaning, what are you standing for? What is it that you want to impact? What is your value or your value proposition in whatever you're doing? And I would see how you feel about inclusion and diversity. I would
Mm-hmm.
have never thought about this and written it out what it means to me if I wouldn't have been challenged to do so.
Mm-hmm.
We can all sit here and say, yeah, we're diverse and inclusive. And if you look into ballet companies that we hired one, pardon me, but one different color dancer, now we're diverse and included.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like that's no, please don't get me started. But it's out there. It's being,
Right.
perpetuated.
Right.
Um, so know what it means to you and act up on it.
Mm-hmm. Great advice, great homework. Everybody has their homework. Please go do it. They're two very, very small things that make a big impact. So please make sure that you do your homework and ask somebody else to do it with you. Pull a friend in, pull a colleague in, ask them to join you in these two things. We have homework that we give you every single week to take the Steps initiative. This initiative includes free courses, free modules on everything from racism, nutrition, psychology, gender equity, sex abuse prevention, psychology. There are modules there that you can start to learn that can help you guide you on the process of doing this homework, challenging your thoughts, understanding what your mission is, and living and being mission driven in the way that you work and the way that you live. So Freya's gonna pop that up there on the screen for you. Make sure you take the Steps initiative. We want to know how we can come see Confluence. I know we only have a few shows that are left. How can we donate? How can we find you? So if either of you want to give us the website and social media handles, we would love for our guests to be able to find you.
Indira, that's all you.
Okay. So you can find us on Instagram at Confluence Ballet. Also on the internet, that's our website. And there's a donate button on our website. So you can donate through that. We also do fundraisers with our shows. So we do Flower for a Dancer. We've been doing that recently. So if you want to have like a more personal impact, you can buy flowers for our dancers, and you can have your name written on it. So then they know, like, oh, I donated. I wanted to give you this flower. And our last two shows will be April 29th at the New Hazlet Theater here in Pittsburgh. And we are looking for one in June. We have not confirmed it yet, but we are performing with a group of arts organizations. So we'll have that date for you as soon as possible.
It's fantastic. So everybody go follow Confluence Ballet on Instagram, and it's confluenceballet.org.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so confluenceballet.org, you can make donations. You can make donations to a dancer, Sunflowers to a dancer, and support them throughout their season. These athletes work incredibly hard. We want to thank both of you, Indira and Suzanne, for being here today. This was an amazing conversation and one that everybody needs to really do a couple times and think about. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
We wish you all the best for a wonderful rest of your season and for everything to come. We're going to be keeping our eyes out for what you all do next, because it's very exciting. For those watching, thank you for tuning in with us each and every Friday. We are turning Beyond the Steps into a podcast this year. It is coming soon. We have blogs to go with these episodes. You can watch them all, 3 seasons now. My goodness. On YouTube at Apollo Performance and TP Dance Creations, and follow us on Instagram as well if you're not doing that. Make sure to share these episodes. If people don't know they exist, they need to. I just had somebody the other day tell them that they tell me that they felt our episodes were really thoughtful and inspiring, and they love the topics, and that they just go a little bit beyond the normal average questions. So we hope you find them valuable as well. Let us know if there's something you want to hear about. We're always looking for topics and guests. So message us at info@Apollo Performance with those ideas. Next week, we'll be back with how setting boundaries. What are they? How can they help us with our physical and mental health, and help us to minimize burnout with our dear friend Ashley Mowry. Will be back. So we hope you tune in for that episode. Until then, you have your homework, and we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.